So besides the regular 4 seasons that everybody has, here in southeastern North Carolina, I also have an additional 5th season that I have to contend with, and it's called hurricane season. Now that the threat of hurricane season is essentially over for my area, it is time to do some work that I have been putting on pause. One of the projects that I've really wanted to do is extend my flower bed, or actually join 2 flower beds. This one right here behind me, and then the one down there all the way at the end. I want a flower bed to take up this entire length of fence. But essentially, between mid-August and mid-September, I halt all of my gardening projects. And that isn't just because it is blazing hot during that time period, but that's also the time period when hurricanes are most likely to hit our area if they're going to. And the last thing I want is to be starting brand new projects or planting new things and then risk them having major wind damage, blowing over, flooding, all of those really fun things. One of the things I was really leery of doing was starting this trellis. Now this trellis by itself is not exactly windproof, so I have to add on to the legs to make them more secure and much deeper into the ground. And then what I wanted to do was take some of my saplings, I don't know, what do you call them? Little babies that had propagated from my wisteria on the other side of the yard, and I wanted to get wisteria climbing up this. Now I'm not looking to duplicate the exact look that I have across the way, but I figured if wisteria could head up here, maybe it could even attach to the privacy screen, the wooden one that I have right there, and start decreasing the line of sight that I have outside of my yard and keep things looking real green and lush in here. Because of that potential threat of wind, you can see why I wasn't comfortable doing the trellis at that time. I am thinking that I am going to do the trellis right around here though, so again, the wisteria can hopefully latch on to the privacy screen right there. That means these little fun oars are coming down. These oars with the dock cleats on them, they were made to hang pool towels for convenience for the kids, you know? Guess what? The kids don't ever use it, so nobody uses them. So the oars are going to come down, the trellis is going to go in front of this area, and then I have this baby. This bench is something that I found at a secondhand store, and I was thrilled to find it because I'm feeling like I can't find a lot of things with great character that are interesting to look at, that could be design elements in my garden. And then I stumbled across this and it was $25. Now, it needs work, it needs some help getting more stable, and I have some fun plans for staining this a blue color. But even though it needs work, I don't care. I love it. This is the time of year for me to get all of that stuff going. So trellis is one thing, this bench is another thing. I want to get this baby looking great. I'm going to use it as a plant stand for varying height right here so I could put some potted plants on it. So that's something else that's coming. If you've watched my channel for a little while, you know that I have a big fascination with rocks. And if you haven't, I have a couple videos dedicated to how I actually get big rocks like these here from other parts of the country. So this rock right here came from New York this summer, and I hadn't found a place for it yet. Now this one is very big, but it is also flat. So I thought I could also have a project for this guy. I also have some plants that I need to get into the ground, so I have a lot of projects ahead of me today. So let's get going. Step number 1 is to make room for the trellis and planting the wisteria. I have to admit I was feeling a little low energy and a little tired, kind of like all the plants in my garden right now after the beating heat and sun and lack of rain. And now, of course, here we are at this time of year when things are beginning to peter out. But I have a brand new sense of renewed energy. I think now that I am doing projects that are for the garden but aren't just with the plants, I am psyched. I am ready to go. I have a grub problem. Ugh. So the ground is prepped and ready for my trellis and my wisteria babies that I got from the other side of the yard. All I want to do now is add these extra legs onto the bottom of the trellis for more support and additional digging down into the ground. The legs, just like these, are just not going to be wind resistant enough should a hurricane or even just strong regular winds come along. The trellis is in place behind me, but before I start planting the wisteria in front of it, I want to start working on my bench because my bench is going to require some sanding, some painting, and then I'll have to wait at least an hour for the paint to dry, stain, I should say stain, for the stain to dry, etc. So I want to start working on something that's going to take some time, and I'll get back to the planting after. Not wear gardening gloves, but I do wear safety glasses. Have you ever used a sander or an orbital for so long that when you're done, your hands feel like they're still vibrating? That's what's happening to me. I have a few spots I want to wood fill on the bench, and then I'm going to set that to the side to dry before I actually do the staining part of it. So I will be moving on to my little rock project next. Since this rock is so big but so flat, I thought it would make a great quote rock. So what I'd like to do is paint the rock with the quote that I found that is like inspiring in my eyes as a gardener, as someone who loves flowers, and here it is. Every flower must grow through dirt. I love it because I feel like it reminds us that even if times are tough, flowers still grow through that dirt, through that grit, and beauty comes out on the other side. So I just love it. I just love it, and that's what I'm going to do. So I have to go pick out what color spray paint I want. I have many spray paints in my garage, and then I think I'll draw out the letters somehow. I haven't exactly decided how I'm going to design it, but now that I've gotten to this stage, this is where the fun begins. I basically just decided that I want to do complementary colors on here. So since blue and orange are complementary colors, I was going to do the rock blue and the writing in orangey, warmer tones, or go the opposite. I decided though I didn't want to paint the rock the orange and go with blue lettering because I don't want a big orange blob kind of hanging out sitting there. So I thought maybe going with a darker blue and then do my lettering in warmer tones, maybe even using white as well. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it, but I just want it to be fun, not like a major art project. And so starting with the blue base. Spent a decent amount of time at Lowe's trying to select a color for my wood stain, and I had seen people use a blue stain on their wood before, and I just fell in love with it. Of course, blue and aqua are my colors anyway, so this is the one that I selected. This will be my first time using it. It is a water-based stain, so that's easy cleanup for me, and plus I get to use some of my favorite brushes, which makes me happy. So I'm going to give it a shot, and my idea is that I will paint all of the wood, or stain all of the wood blue, and then of course leave all of the metal its patinaed rust color, which should be a glorious combination of complementary colors as well. I do know that there are other layers of finishes on here as well. I did not sand all the way to bare wood in every spot, and I like that because that's exactly the kind of artist that I am as well. I'm not realistic and picture perfect. I like to have things look like they have character. It could be a little messy. So if some of the blue shows through more transparent, some more opaque, varying shades, I'm great with all of that. So it'll be an experiment to see how we do. So here we go with some blue stain on our awesomely newly sanded bench. You might not be able to see it fully just yet, but I have to say, I feel like it's going on very much. I'm gonna get a rag and see what I can do, because I feel like it looks a lot like paint. Okay, here's what I have found out. If I apply it with the rag, it's going to be a lot lighter. That is what I actually want. I want it to be semi-transparent for the most part, and when I did it with the brush, it looked a lot more opaque. So I'm gonna stop doing that, and I'll sand this and redo it after. I think my bench came out pretty cool. I had bought the stain that was supposed to be solid color instead of the translucent one, so I ended up mixing with water or thinning it out with water in some spots just where I wanted a little bit more of the wood grain to show through. So I was It was only because the samples at the store looked different to me. That's why I picked one over the other. But with the solid, it just looked too much like paint, and I felt like there was no wood grain at all. So I just didn't care for that. Outside of that, the entire bench is going to need to be coated with a clear coat, but that is not for today. I've already taken on a lot of projects for today. So I'm going to get back to my rock now, see if I can't finish that up so that all the little components that I started earlier today can get wrapped up. So here's essentially where I ended up yesterday. I got my bench all ready, so it's looking good. I got my trellis in, I got my wisteria planted. I do have these two hardy hibiscus. I believe they're called Red Star Texas hardy hibiscus. I want them to flank either side of this bench, so I will get them in the ground. And I guess the idea I have is to continue carving out the grass here so that I don't have grass underneath my bench, leave that sitting here. These, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them yet, but they're still pretty cool, even if we're not utilizing them the way they were meant to be. So I think I'm going to keep the oars and maybe put them somewhere else along the fence or something. And then, you know, the journey continues as it always does being a gardener, and I will continue to make my flower bed going off to the side until these two beds are connected. Thank you so much for watching, and happy planting.